this is pretty funny. And as you guys know, Jordan Peterson was scheduled to make an appearance on the Krystal Kyle Friends podcast. I think like last week, right? Just last week or so, maybe 2 weeks ago. Anyway, the dude bailed at the last minute. And this was after Krystal Ball read both of his books in preparation for this interview. Can you imagine reading both of Jordan Peterson's books in preparation for an interview that he then bails on? What a waste of your goddamn time. And apparently Kyle listened to like hundreds of hours of his lectures or whatever. So, but anyway, the point is now, after he's been, stabbed in the back by Jordan, betrayed, and left for the dead. Now Kyle is coming back with a vengeance, and he's a little bit on the warpath against Jordan Peterson, again, who is just totally bailed on this conversation they were supposed to have. This is the second video he's made kind of going after him. Again, as you referenced, Zach, he reacted to that Tim Dillon clip, which was pretty funny, to be honest, making fun of Peterson. And now he has this video out called Jordan Peterson Teams Up with Ted Cruz. Let's take a listen here. It's not too long of a video.
So Jordan Peterson tweeted something the other day that is hilarious. So he said this. Let me show you. Talked to Senator Ted Cruz's key investors, in parentheses, not donors, yesterday in Fort Worth, suggested that Republicans could offer young people the sustaining meaning of responsibility, among other better stories.
By the way, what does that even mean, investor? I genuinely don't even know what Jordan Peterson's talking about there. I didn't know human beings like senators had investors. What the fuck even is this?
I think he's talking like investors in the PAC. Like it's not donations into the PAC. They're investing in their political future via this PAC because they know that for every $1 they spend on the super PAC, they're going to get like $50 fucking back in taxes.
Just like, what a weird way to phrase that. Anyway, sorry guys.
And then he tags Ted Cruz. And see, it says there on the left, Investor Retreat, Truth and Courage PAC. It's hilarious that Ted Cruz calls his PAC the Truth and Courage PAC. Truth and Courage. Ted Cruz. This is the guy who colossally cucked himself to Donald Trump after Donald Trump said his dad killed JFK and he wouldn't spill the beans on his wife, basically calling Cruz's wife ugly. And then Cruz was asked by the media, okay, but will you support him if he's the nominee? And Cruz wouldn't answer and said, I'm going to be the nominee. Ted Cruz. And then, of course, after going to the RNC and you work for us, you better go, after getting obliterated by him in the debates. So there's a number of things to say about this. Nobody is less truthful and less courageous than Ted Cruz. I love how the fact that Peterson says his key investors, not donors. What are you talking about? What's the difference? Key investors? Was he starting some sort of private company? You're investing in the private company. And by the way, you don't think that would affect how he legislates? Of course it would affect how he legislates. By the way, Ted Cruz right now is involved in a case that's working its way through the court system. It may even be going to the Supreme Court. I don't remember what I read about that. I may have read that. But the case is he wants even more money in politics. He wants even more money in politics. So the idea that this, not donors. So in other words, Peterson's trying to be like, look, it's not corrupt. It's not corrupt. Ted Cruz is one of the most corrupt politicians that there is. This is a guy who has openly argued that if a billionaire is donating to a politician, they have free speech rights to do it. So if a billionaire wants to give millions of dollars to a politician, Cruz says there's nothing wrong with that at all. Not only is that not corruption, that's not even the appearance of corruption. That's just First Amendment protected free speech. It most certainly is not free speech. It most certainly is corruption and bribery. So he's one of the most corrupt people there is. So anyway, Peterson trying to cover his ass by saying that is hilarious. Like, no, this is one of the most odious politicians in the country, and you're meeting up with him now. But there's a more important point. The more important point is Peterson's talking to Cruz about we need to teach young people the sustaining meaning of responsibility, among other better stories. So the stories part is, how Jordan Peterson's obsessed with narratives and stories, and you got to look at yourself as the hero in the story and try your best to live honorably and to tell the truth, or at least don't lie and stand up with your back straight and clean your room and all this stuff. So the narrative thing is classic Jordan Peterson, obsessed with stories, but telling Ted Cruz that you need to sell personal responsibility. Hey, Jordan, that's not the job of a politician. The job of a politician is to legislate on behalf of the people and represent the voters. So in other words, if the voters say, hey, Ted Cruz, we would like a living wage out here, please. We work full time and don't make enough money to survive. Could you help us out on that? That's Ted Cruz's job. Ted Cruz's job is hey man, we have 45,000 people dying every year because they don't have basic health care. Can we get some universal health coverage, please? That's his job. His job is to make laws and legislate the will of the people in what's supposed to be a constitutional republic and a representative democracy. This is just a total category error. And if anything, what politicians do when they stress the personal responsibility angle of stuff is them dodging their own personal responsibility to do their job as a politician properly, to implement laws for the people. So he's
also, even though all this stuff is 100% true, imagine Ted Cruz being the guy you pick to buddy up with. Like, what a lame loser that literally no one really gives a shit about. Like, does anyone actually like Ted Cruz? Chat, let me know if there's actually a significant Ted Cruz fan base out there. But it seems like the majority of even the GOP at this point is pretty over the guy. They find him pretty goddamn unbearable. I mean, I know that the Trump folks just hate him because he's lying Ted. But like, who actually is Ted Cruz's real constituency at this point? It seems like even guys like Dan Crenshaw have a bigger, base than a guy like Ted Cruz. Just such a lame, cringy loser to buddy up with. And I think that tells you everything you need to know about Jordan Peterson and how anti-establishment he actually is. But that's just an aside.
But I don't know. The one thing I will push back about Ted Cruz and say, even though he is probably the most unlikable politician I've ever seen, like if I was ever, now I'm going to get banned from any fucking press rally, but if I ever had a clean shot at the motherfucker's snout, you know what I mean? I'll punch him right in the fucking, he just looks like he deserves it, right? I don't know. That's my latent barbarism, but I don't know what the fuck to say. I wrote a fucking satire column about it in high school. I don't know what the fuck to do about it. The guy's got a punchable fucking face. That being said, didn't he have like one of the most popular podcasts in the world for a while? I don't know if that was just entirely like corporate inflated, but he was right up there. He had a massively popular podcast for a while. I don't know if he still does. But that there is a constituency of like fucking a lot of people in rural, middle America, the South, like all these kinds of like, backdoor woodsy, like I'm a man, I need to cut my fucking taxes. I'm not making fun of people, but I'm just saying like, the hillbillies that would be my extended family. I don't know. Those people might fucking be the constituents of Ted Cruz. The last remaining bastion of people who want to like have the old Republican Party exist. I feel like those people flock. So I don't think it's enough to be like a power force, but surely it's enough to at least have like some cultural relevancy and make some money.
True. I still just think it's very revealing that Jordan Peterson is like buddy hanging out with this fucking loser who just really personifies all the worst aspects of like corporate rot in our two-party system. I mean, this guy doesn't have a populist bone in his fucking body, Ted Cruz. Anyway, let's listen to the rest of this video because it does get a little juicier as Kyle goes on to, savage Peterson even more.
Ironically, he would be dodging his own personal responsibility if he just goes out there and lectures people about personal responsibility. Look, guys, don't get it twisted. I have a guilty pleasure. My guilty pleasure is I love the motivational speaking stuff. I do. I love the self-help guru stuff. I love the arguments about
please internalize the failure
get your ass
of
out of bed,
capitalism.
go do the things that you got to do. Here are the reasons why that's a good idea. I like that stuff probably even more than the next guy. Sometimes I like corny and cheesy ass quotes more than the next guy. So I have nothing against that at all. In fact, I think there's this vacuum on the left where nobody gives you that stuff while also making leftist arguments in terms of public policy. Like, I want the left to be sufficient in the art of personal improvement while also not abandoning the commitment to the community and better public policy. So I support that stuff strongly. What I do not support is corrupt Republican politicians or Democratic politicians lecturing people about personal responsibility.
And just as an interesting conversation, what do you think about that, Zach? Do you agree with what he's saying as far as the left maybe embracing to some extent a more of a personal improvement kind of discourse? Because I mean, to be fair, just to give him credit, I do think that like one person that would exemplify that is like a Marianne Williamson. I think Breonna Joy Gray actually made that point the last time she interviewed her. She was like, I actually like the fact that you talk about self-improvement and, meditation and that kind of stuff, because it makes you more relatable. It makes you more human, and it makes you appeal to people, just from a public relations standpoint as a left. It makes you appeal to people on another level, another layer that maybe you weren't just by giving them pure policy talk, even though obviously that stuff's more substantive. But do you think he has a point there, or do you think he's full of shit?
No, he's not full of shit. A lot of what I was doing, guys, I was just making comedy while we were listening to that, but because it was really funny and he opened the door for it. But look, so yes, 100% in one capacity. The left, the right, we cannot allow the right to have a monopoly on self-improvement, right? I think that's a necessity, and that's one of the things that we talk about honestly all the time on our show. Why is a guy like Jordan Peterson super popular? Why is because he fulfills that paternal role that is missing in a lot of men's lives, right? And that causes all kinds of societal problems, and they compound when you've got a crazy nut job like Jordan Peterson giving all those guys advice, right? Or they'll dude, it happens to people that I've seen with progressive values, right? They'll get in there with like, oh, well, we're gonna teach you how to get women, or we're going to teach you how to be a real man and take it. And then they spiral out of control, and then they're sharing and retweeting libertarian shit. And I'm pulling my hair out being like, what happened to you, comrade? Okay. So I worry about that too, because so much of the modern market for self-help, and to be frank, the people that Kyle name drops that he likes are the biggest fucking purveyors of this often, which is what I was pulling my hair out when he was like, oh, I like Jocko Willink. Yo, really? You like the Navy SEAL guy that's made a career telling people to conquer their inner bitch and that fucking discipline equals freedom, and that doesn't sound Orwellian to you? Like, I'm sorry, but this is not for me. And when you talk, so if you're talking about that kind of shit, right? I'm gonna roll my eyes at it. But I think that you're right that Marianne Williamson, and there's a lane for all kinds of people on the left to talk about wellness and health and building up your own life, and in doing so in a way that actually positive, that's not so individualistic, that's all about uplifting your community, all kinds of shit. I was like, I was just working the other day, and I had to listen to this fucker talk about marriage counseling for 3 hours straight, and he was talking about God and all this stuff, and how God wants only the true couples that can withstand all the fighting that they're doing, and on all this kinds of shit, weird bullshit that you're pastor tells you when you're I don't fucking know, but it was one dude who was the religious guy and one woman who was in a terrible marriage, from what I gathered when I was eavesdropping on their conversation. That's the bad kind of self-help, right? That woman, probably she was really young. She probably shouldn't have been married to the asshole that she was married to anyway. The good advice would have been get an attorney, get the fuck out of here, and move the fuck on with your life, not continue to let your husband treat you like shit, and know that Jesus only rewards the couples that persevere, right? So there's bad kinds of a self-help and all that kind of stuff, and that's what the right creates. The problem that happens is the left just doesn't participate in it at all, because we think it's beneath us, and then there's all those people, they have nowhere to go except to those dog shit oh, you must internalize the failures of capitalism, you must overcome, you must step on,
pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Yeah, 100%. And you're totally correct. And I think that the left should step into that lane, artfully so, and to counter it from a perspective that doesn't just drive home the individualistic capitalist pull yourself up by the bootstraps kind of ideology, which you're absolutely right, a lot of the Jocko Willink and Jordan Peterson types do lean heavily on, which is why I find their inspirational or motivational material to be problematic, because I think it puts all the onus on you as an individual, rather than acknowledging that in the state of poverty or desperation, people aren't able to live up to their potential. People aren't able to get out of bed at 6 a.m. and conquer their inner bitch if they're not happy and have all of their basic minimum necessities met. And that's something that we need to talk about a lot more as a left. Anyway, let's listen to a little bit more of this. Not to go off on too big of a tangent here.
As they destroy the country, because they represent their donors, they represent billionaires, they represent corporations, as the country burns, as everybody's having a rough go of it at the moment. So this is just simply a category error, man. I mean, the fact that Jordan Peterson doesn't understand that this is not the job of a politician. The job, and by the way, also, nobody likes politicians. Have you seen the numbers? Have you seen how, Congress always has an approval rating between 7% and 25%? Nobody likes these people. Nobody likes Ted Cruz. I'm sure his numbers are underwater. So in a weird way, even if Ted Cruz took the advice, it would almost like besmirch the message itself. Because this unlikable, uncharismatic guy making an argument for a concept that's generally an okay and decent concept, it would like undermine that concept in a way. But again, the most important point is, for the love of God, that's not your job, Ted Cruz. And anytime you are lecturing about personal responsibility, that's a moment wasted when you could be talking about legislation that would actually help the people. But he's not in favor of legislation that helps the people at all. Not even close, not even a little bit. So, I mean, think about it, guys. Let's say every politician in America took Jordan Peterson's advice and lectured people about personal responsibility. How insufferable would that be?
Also, shout out to John for the $5. Thanks, man. Peterson is so popular because conservatives fall in line way faster than lefties. And when the lobster king commands, you bend to the claw. That's fucking hilarious. Thank you for the super chat, John. And yeah, I think you're right. Also, I think it's partially just because the right wing likes Peterson because he sounds smart. He sounds like an intellectual, yet he's still basically satisfying. He's basically telling them what they want to hear. So they can be like, look, this smart sounding person is saying what I want to say. So that therefore it must be true. There's not a ton of intellectuals that are on the right. So they kind of gravitate to the ones that are and really hold them up and be like, look at this guy. Look at this guy. I promise, we're not all fucking idiots.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, John.
You got these scumbags ruining the country. And at the same time, they're finger wagging at you and telling you to get your shit together. How about you get your shit together? How about that? How about that? Unbelievable. Unbelievable, man. Imagine telling a politician, hey, you need to push the notion of personal responsibility. That would be a total diversion and deflection from the fact that these politicians aren't doing their own jobs well and they're not representing the people. Look, if you want to get into personal responsibility stuff, then go do that. Go be a motivational speaker. Go have your own podcast where you argue for these sorts of narratives all the time. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But you can't be in a position where your job is to represent the community and then you turn around and lecture people about their own individual failings. See, that's the thing, is it personalizes broader systemic problems. And that's not okay. When you pretend like, for example, like poverty is just a choice. You're just lazy. You just don't have any discipline. It's a personal moral failing on your part. That is fundamentally not true. Again, to go back to the original point, minimum wage is not a living wage in this country. You can work full time and not make enough money to survive. Is that their individual fault? Are they just not trying hard enough? Are they not pulling themselves up by their bootstraps enough? It's just not accurate. So, look, I don't know what to tell you guys. These are conversations that we were going to have with Jordan Peterson to his face. He was supposed to come on Krystal Kyle and Friends at the last minute, as you all know. He dropped out, said he has to prepare for his month-long speaking tour. Then, by the way, he went on Joe Rogan after he said, we're not doing more podcasts. I got to prepare for my tour and rest and everything. So we're going to have these conversations with him to his face, but he had other things in mind. Now, in theory, he's supposed to come on in June or July. We'll see if that happens. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I hope it does, because even though a lot of these intellectual dark web types love to talk about how they're in favor of free discourse and open dialogue and freedom of speech and reasonable disagreements, oftentimes when they have conversations, it's kind of a circle jerk and everybody's agreeing with everybody. Well, there's some reasonable pushback. That would be good for the culture and the broader dialogue. So let's hope it happens, because there's a lot to say. Hey, y'all, do me.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was excited to break down the Jordan Peterson, Krystal Kyle and Friends episode. I was hoping that there would have been really good debate. And I'm so curious what it is that Kyle thinks that him and Jordan Peterson agree on so much. So I wanted that to get broken to the public, so that it's just for my own fucking insight. But yeah, doesn't look like it's going to happen. He's running scared. I will say, talking shit on people who will only go on the Joe Rogan podcast is a little bit of pot calling the kettle black. I don't see Kyle going and making go on Vosh's show and Joe Rogan's show. Okay, really, really getting out there, Kyle. And also people are loving the fact that, Kyle, you hate when you get Jimmy Dore, right? And remember when you just fucking straight up kicked Jimmy Dore off of the fucking Krystal Kyle and Friends and didn't even tell him and replaced him with Hassan Piker? Yeah, that sucks. Comeuppance, Schadenfreude. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. That being said, I still think on the substance, Kyle Kulinski's 100% right in that clip, talking about what a loser Ted Cruz is, and talking about, by extension, kind of what a loser Jordan Peterson is for cozying up. Obviously, the interview is probably not going to happen at this point, and I think that Jordan Peterson is, a total wimp, a total wuss for not actually engaging with people that aren't just, blue-haired college campus lefties seeking to cancel people, but people like Krystal Ball, people like Kyle Kulinski that do represent the populist left in a better light, and that are actually interested in having a good faith exchange, because there are many people on the left that are not just total cringe lords, and it's worth engaging with them for the sake of the public discourse, again, which these people claim to care so much about.